Hello students, welcome to grade 10 chemistry class atomic structure. In previous class I have explained you about the presence of subatomic particles in an atom and different atomic models, Dalton's atomic theory, Rutherford's atomic model, and then Bohr's atomic theory. Now in this session I am going to explain you about Sommerfield's atomic model, which could overcome the defects of Bohr's atomic model. Now let's get started. Sommerfeld, in order to explain the observed fine spectrum of spectral lines, he introduced two main modifications in Bohr's theory. So to overcome the defects, that is, hydrogen atom could explain the structure of only hydrogen atom or hydrogen-like atoms. So this is a defect of Bohr's theory. And another defect is that Bohr's theory could not explain Zeeman effect and Stark effect. And he could not explain the spectral lines of hydrogen atom. So to overcome those defects, Sommerfeld has explained his theory, his observations in the form of a theory known as Sommerfeld's atomic model, Bohr's Sommerfeld atomic model, and he made two main modifications in his theory. In order to explain the formation of fine lines in hydrogen spectrum, Sommerfeld proposed orbits to be elliptical rather than circular. So the first modification that was proposed by Sommerfeld is that electrons in an atom revolve in the orbits which are elliptical in shape rather than circular. So he proposed that electrons revolve in elliptical shaped orbits but not in circular shaped. An electron revolving around the nucleus is so influenced by the nuclear charge that it is set into motion in elliptical orbits with nucleus situated at one of the foci. So what he had proposed, the other one is an electron revolving around the nucleus. So the electrons are revolving in elliptical orbits, and when they are revolving in these elliptical orbits, they are under the influence of nuclear charge of the nucleus. So here electron, this revolving electron is under the influence of the nuclear charge which contains positively charged protons in it, and electron is negatively charged. Since they are oppositely charged particles, electron is under the influence of nuclear charge. So due to this oppositely charged attraction, it gets influenced and set into elliptical orbits with nucleus situated at one of the foci. Means when a revolving electron is under the influence of nucleus, its motion is modified or set into elliptical orbits. And when they are revolving in these elliptical orbits, the nucleus is situated at one of the foci. So here elliptical shape is one which is elongated at both the sides. In the next slide I am going to show that. So here you must imagine the elliptical shape, that is oval shape or an egg shape. When you take, it is stretched or elongated at both the sides. So here when it is in elliptical shape, here it contains two major axes. So here this nucleus will be at one of the foci, means at one of the center, because the elliptical shape contains two axes, whereas circular, when we take circular shape, has only one center. But when we imagine elliptical shape, it has two foci. So a revolving electron is under the influence of the nuclear charge of which the nucleus is present at one of the foci. It can be on any of the axes. Now this is circular shape, which you know very well, and in this shape the nucleus is at the center of the atom. that is the center of the circle. Whereas when we imagine elliptical shape, this shape is obtained by stretching the ends of the circle both the sides. When the circle is elongated at both the sides, then we get elliptical shape. So in this elliptical shape, the center point, the nucleus, can be present on two axes, and in an ellipse, the line joining of the points along this line is known as major axis, because it is the length which is maximum here. So this is the major axis, and when you join the points along these two ends, then it is known as minor axis. The length of the minor axis is lesser than the major axis. So in elliptical shape, the nucleus can be present either on the major axis or on the minor axis, and these 2 points or positions where its center is located is known as foci, means the plural form of focus. In circle, the center point is known as center where the nucleus is located, whereas in elliptical shape, the nucleus can be present at any of the foci. Now here in the slide you can see the electron is moving in the elliptical orbit. This is the elliptical shaped orbit. So here in an ellipse there are two axes. One is major axis. This is major axis and this is the minor axis. And electron is in elliptical orbit. Electron is present in the elliptical orbit and the nucleus is present. This is the nucleus and this is present on the major axis. So a nucleus can be on the foci of either major axis or minor axis. Now in this instance it is on the major axis. Now it was observed that an electron, when it is revolving in an elliptical orbit, its velocity is varying at different parts of the orbit. So what was the point observed is the velocity of the electron moving in an elliptical orbit varies at different parts of the orbit. So here when an electron is revolving in elliptical orbit, its velocity is not same, is not constant. It is changing from one position to the other position. Suppose if the electron present here, its velocity is different from the electron which is present at the other position. It may be the other side or at any instant of time. Its position changes. So along with that, velocity is also changing. So this causes the relativistic variation in the mass of the moving electron. This had led to the second point, that it is changing. The relativistic change was observed in the mass of the moving electron. So due to the changing velocity, the relativistic variation was observed even in the mass of the electron also. So in this slide you can see that the revolving electron is in elliptical orbit and it is under the influence of nucleus which is on the major axis. So here this revolving electron is under the influence of nuclear charge of the nucleus, and when it is under the influence of the nuclear charge, it is revolving in elliptical orbit with an angle which is known as azimuthal angle. So this angle is known as azimuthal angle, represented here by phi. To deal with these two variables, two quantum numbers are introduced. That is, to deal with the two variables, that is change in velocity and change in the relativistic mass of an electron. To explain, two quantum numbers were introduced. The first one is principal quantum number n of Bohr's theory, which determines the energy of the electron. So the two variables can be explained by introducing two quantum numbers. The first one is principal quantum number, denoted by the letter n, and this is from the Bohr's theory. It determines the energy of the electrons. And the next one is a new quantum number called orbital, or azimuthal quantum number L, which has been introduced to characterize the angular momentum in an orbit. So the second quantum number that is introduced is orbital quantum number or azimuthal quantum number, which is represented by the letter L. And this has been introduced to characterize, that is to explain, to know the character of angular momentum in an orbit, which determines or which gives the angular momentum of the electron. Its values vary from 0 to n-1 in steps of unity. So the value of orbital quantum number can change from 0 to n-1 in steps of unity, means in units. And this had come after many changes. Now let's see what they are. So here, to explain the fine spectrum, Sommerfeld proposed that electrons revolve in elliptical orbits, imagining that orbits are in elliptical shape. And this is the major axis, this is the minor axis. Nucleus is present on the major axis and electron is in the elliptical orbit, which is under the influence of nuclear charge. So the angular momentum of the revolving electron is quantized. He too, the Sommerfeld too, has proposed. Sommerfeld has also proposed that the revolving electron possesses angular momentum which is quantized, that is, which is fixed, having multiples of h by 2 pi, such that the angular momentum mvr is equal to kh by 2 pi. So he has proposed that. He too agreed with Bohr's model and said that the revolving electron's angular momentum is quantized, whose value is equal to kh by 2 pi, where k is an integer which is not equal to 0. And this is known as azimuthal quantum number. First, it was proposed or it was considered to be taken k as azimuthal quantum number. And Sommerfeld has also proposed that n by k is equal to length of major axis by length of minor axis. That is, the value observed to be the principal quantum number n, that is major axis, length of the major axis by length of minor axis is a fixed value. And it was observed that this n by k value gives the shape of the orbit, and where the value of n is equal to k, the orbit is imagined to be circular in shape. The values of k vary such that k can have values equal to n, n-1, n-2, so on till 1. So here it was observed that n by k is equal to length of the major axis by length of minor axis, and where the value of n is equal to k, that is the length of the major axis. This is the major axis and this is CD is the minor axis, and here AB is major axis, CD is minor axis. When AB is equal to CD, this orbit is said to exist in circular shape. So here when n is equal to k, the orbit is in circular shape as proposed by Bohr's theory. So here this gave a conclusion that electrons revolve in elliptical orbits, but when the length of the major axis is equal to minor axis, it is set into circular orbit, and the values of k can be equal to n, n-1, n-2, so on till 1, till it reaches the 1, and the number of possible values of k is equal to be n, where k is not equal to 0, that is length of the minor axis is 0. So here when you take k is minor axis, until and unless k is not equal to 0, electron length of the major axis by length of the minor axis is equal to n by k, and k is equal to 0 is not possible. Suppose if k is equal to 0, that is the length of minor axis is 0, then an electron should pass through the nucleus, which is not possible because here electron is under the influence of nuclear charge. Now, it was observed that for each value of n, there are n possible orbits corresponding to different L values. So later on, it was observed that the azimuthal quantum number k can be changed to L, and these values are changing from 0 to n minus 1. That is the first energy level, ground state, where n is equal to 1, then L is equal to 0. And here at this instant, there is only one possible orbit for this state. Imagine that when n is equal to 1, L is equal to the azimuthal quantum number L is equal to 0, and here in this there is only one possible orbit to exist. The second level n is equal to 2 has two possible orbits corresponding to n is equal to 2, that is L is equal to 0 and L is equal to 1. Since L values are from 0 to n minus 1, so the first L value is 0. The next L value is 2 minus 1. So it is equal to 1, and hence the second energy level has two possible values, that is 0 and 1. Now, if suppose the third energy level with n is equal to 3, then the possible orbits are again 0 to n minus 1. So 0, n minus 1, that is 3 minus 1, 2. Again, so it can have the values from 0 to 2, that is 0, 1 and 2. So here three possible values can exist. They are L is equal to 0, L is equal to 1 and L is equal to 2. So all of you are aware that a revolving electron presence can be known by the principal quantum number n, and this quantum number n gives the energy of the orbit, and these orbits are possessing suborbits or sub energy levels in them, which are known as subshells also, and those subshells are S, P, D, F and G. So these subshells S, P, D, F, G can be known by the azimuthal quantum number value, azimuthal quantum number or orbital quantum number L. So the corresponding azimuthal quantum numbers and their shapes are as follows. Like if it is equal to 0, orbital quantum number L is equal to 0, then it is S. If it is 1, it corresponds to p orbital. If it is 2, then it corresponds to D, 3 to F, 4 to G, so on. So here you can see that if an electron is in third orbit, that is n is equal to 3, the principal quantum number n is equal to 3, then the possible L values are from 0 to n minus 1. So first it is equal to L is equal to 0, that is 3s. Since it is in third orbit, so it is corresponding to 3s. Then the next value is 1, that is 3p, then 3d. So here when an electron is in third orbit, the possible L values are from 0 to n minus 3. Sorry, 0 to n minus 1, which is equal to 2. So the possible values are 0, 1 and 2. So three values are possible. When n is equal to 3, the possible L values are from 0 to n minus 1. N minus 1 means 3 minus 1, 2. So the values are from 0 to 2. That is 0, 1, 2. So three values are possible, and those three values corresponds to three sub-energy levels, and those three sub-energy levels are 3s, 3p and 3d. So in this way, the corresponding or the respective orbital quantum number L gives the number of sub-energy levels present in an orbit. Hence, electrons in L is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3 states are said to be in the SPDF states. So here it was explained to you that L values are from 0 to n minus 1. But how we have got them, the values 0 to n minus 1 are can be explained clearly with this structure of this figure. The azimuthal quantum number was modified to L, which is k minus 1. Beginning when Sommerfeld model was proposed, it was taken or considered to be the k value are from 0 to k. But later on it was corrected to L, azimuthal quantum number, and the values are from 0 to k minus 1. The energy of the electron depends not only on n but also on L. So here the energy of an electron depends not only on n, it depends on the value of L. Transition of electrons from, for example, N3 to N2 will involve more than one energy level depending upon the various possible values of L in two states. This leads to the occurrence of group of fine lines observed in the hydrogen atom spectrum. So here the possible values of L is due to the transition of electron, that is change of the position of electron from one energy level to the next higher or lower energy level. For example, this is n is equal to 3, that is third orbit. When an electron is jumping from third orbit to second orbit, the possible transitions, the possible positions of an electron to jump is from L is equal to 2 to L is equal to 1. L is equal to 1 to L is equal to 1 of second orbit, or it can come from L is equal to 0 to L is equal to 1. So here when an electron is jumping from third orbit, when it is jumping from third orbit to second orbit, so in second orbit two subshells are present because L values are from 0 to n minus 1, that is 0 and 1. So it can jump, an electron can jump from L is equal to 2 to L is equal to 0, or L is equal to 1 to L is equal to 0, or L is equal to 0 to L is equal to 0 of second orbit. In the same way, an electron from third energy level can jump to first energy level also. That is, L is equal to 1 from any of these three sub-energy levels. So in brief, how it can be understood clearly that when an electron is jumping from n is equal to 3 to n is equal to 2, second orbit has two sub-energy levels. Third orbit has three sub-energy levels. So an electron can jump from any of these three sub-energy levels to any one of these sub-energy level in the second orbit. So this has led to the occurrence of group of fine lines. Due to this possible jumpings or transitions, it can the spectral lines can occur in as group of fine lines, which was also observed in hydrogen atom spectrum. The frequencies of these fine lines were in agreement with the values calculated from the Bohr-Sommerfeld theory. So here it was predicted that an electron from third orbit can jump to second orbit. And the possible values are these, like from any one of the third orbit to it can jump to any sub-energy level of the second orbit, and it was observed also as group of fine lines due to its changing frequency. So here the frequency of these lines were in agreement, were observed to be true when calculated with the Bohr-Sommerfeld theory. So this was accepted that the L values can be from 0 to n minus 1. Suggested Sommerfeld suggested that the orbits are made up of sub-energy levels, which are represented as SPDF. These possess slightly different energies. So here when an electron is present in an orbit, maybe in the first orbit or second orbit, the energy of first orbit is different from the energy of the second orbit, and second to third, third to fourth, and so on. And it was also observed that each energy level, each orbit is made up of sub-energy levels due to the azimuthal quantum number values 0 to n minus 1, and these sub-energy levels are represented as SPDF. And it was observed that these sub-energy levels or subshells possess energy, and the energy of them differs very slightly. Bohr gave a quantum number n which determines the energy of the electron, that is principal quantum number n. And when an electron jumps from one orbit to another orbit, the difference of energy depends upon the sub-energy level. So this jumping of the electron is possible due to the change in the energy of the sub-energy levels. It explains the splitting of individual spectral lines of hydrogen and thus fine spectrum. It could not predict the exact number of lines which are actually present in the fine spectrum. So here it was observed that due to this transition of the electron, spectral lines were formed, but the number of spectral lines formed in the spectrum were not exactly found. Sommerfeld model could successfully explain the fine spectrum of hydrogen atom, but it has its defects. Like the first defect is that this model does not explain the behavior of the system having more than one electron. Sommerfeld model could not explain the behavior of the atoms which are having more than one electron. The second defect of the second flaw is that this model does not explain the Zeeman effect and Stark effect. Even like Bohr's model, Sommerfeld model also could not explain Zeeman effect and Stark effect. That is, splitting up of the spectrum to fine lines in presence of magnetic field is known as Zeeman effect. This was not explained by Sommerfeld. The same way, when the spectral lines are split in presence of electric field, it is known as Stark effect. Even this was also not explained by Sommerfeld model. So these are the two defects of Sommerfeld's atomic model. So with this I conclude the class, and in the next class we are going to discuss about the overcomes of Sommerfeld atomic model. How the Sommerfeld model's defects were overcome by the other scientists. But before you attend the next class, I want you to go through the notes which you are writing and the video once again and attend the class. Thank you.